Hello, welcome back. This is Dad Chats to episode 8 now, and today I'm talking to Daniel Newman, T1D Dan. I think many of you will know him as on social media. Good afternoon, Dan. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, well, for once, many colds so far this year, but yeah, doing okay now.
Good, good.
So it's good to catch up with you again. It's been a couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah. We were just saying, yeah. It's the was it summer 2022 in the beer garden, and yeah, it was a long time, but it was a good, good day. But yeah, time's
Yeah,
just flown by.
it has amazingly. I think we were getting to the end of like that COVID time maybe, and people were
Yeah,
keen to meet up. We had that
yeah,
good little get together in a pub beer garden. Nice day, of course,
yes,
as it
yes,
always
it
is
was.
in Middle
Yeah.
England, always sunny. Anyway, today we're going to focus on you and your diabetes. I'm going to sort of not get you back, but I spoke on a podcast a few years back, so we're kind of catching up a bit on the
Yes,
opposite side of things today. So I'll do
yes.
the questions and you do the answers today. So you,
Yes, you do.
you live with type 1 diabetes, as your moniker suggests on social media, T1D Dan. Can you tell me a little bit about your diagnosis? When and where? What happened?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 10 years old. It was a summer going from year five to year six. And all I really remember is I was drinking a lot of Ribena at my nan's house. And then from there, my aunt took myself and my cousins to the cinema. I was really unwell. Went back home, still unwell. Then my mum called the emergency GP later on in the much later on in the evening, like in probably early hours of the morning, um, and he pricked my finger and said, "You need to take him to A&E now." Um, and then just remember being in A&E, in the obviously the children's A&E, and lots of beeping, lots of stuff going on, and then the doctor said you have diabetes. Obviously, there was a much longer time frame in between that, and then yeah, then I was in hospital. I think 10 days, 2 weeks. I can't remember exactly, but that's all I remember from my diagnosis story.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Do you have knowledge of feeling super unwell, or is it all a bit hazy?
It's a bit hazy. I just know I was unwell. Um, but it was in terms of actually how I was feeling. I don't I don't know. I can't recall that feeling of being like, yes, this is how I felt. I just remember being unwell. Um, and I'm very fortunate that I didn't lose consciousness. I wasn't in kind of in severe decay where I did. So I was very fortunate in that sense of being aware of what was happening in a weird way, because I've heard many diagnosis stories where people do lose consciousness and it's got to that point, and so yeah, I was very fortunate in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. It was same here, but yeah, in terms of not losing consciousness and DKA, quite fortunate, I think. So how many years ago was that? When was that?
Oh, I'm gonna age myself now. It was 27 years ago.
Like, yeah, I mean,
So
still a puppy, still a baby.
yeah, still, I look young, so I'm holding on to that as much
Yeah.
as
You,
the numbers are going up. I'm like, you still look young. You're still okay. You're still okay.
physically, it's all good. I still never change.
Yeah, yeah,
So you've got you've got 27 years on the clock
yeah,
with T1D. So you've seen a lot of changes. I'm imagining in that time, but you've also lived with quite a few changes as well
yeah,
in terms of diabetes complications.
yeah,
Can you? Is it okay to ask you about when that began and what those were?
yeah. So, I think just to really to summarize the background, I really struggled in my teenage years. that continued into my early 20s. And that struggle lasted a number of years. And because of that, so it was, I would take, I got to a point where I was like, well, I can't be bothered to test my levels, but I'll just take insulin based on how I feel. But then in my late teens, early 20s, I'm going out, I'm drinking, getting drunk. After you leaving the club, I'm going to get a kebab, I'm going to get chips, but I'm not injecting for it. So then I'm waking up and my levels are sky high, and there's so much going on. Um, and so the main kind of complications part, I would say, starts in 2013. Um, that's the marker for me. So that's when I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. But prior to that, my kidneys had been leaking protein, but I wasn't as engaged in my diabetes management. So I knew what was happening, but I didn't really understand what was happening until that point of, oh, I've now got chronic kidney disease. Um, and I won't go into all of that, but from 2013 up until April 2018, I was living with chronic kidney disease. April 2018, I had a kidney transplant. Um, and so that was just just a difficult journey where your kidney function is progressively dropping, and you reach a point where they say, well, the options are dialysis or a transplant. But dialysis I was very fortunate I didn't have dialysis. I've never had dialysis. I had a transplant before I needed it. But then, and the donor was a family member. So I'm very fortunate in that sense. But also when you need a transplant, it's not like you're just saying, oh, can you lend me a fiver? You're asking somebody to go have an operation to give you an organ. There's so many mixed emotions going on as well. And the positives was that is that I feel that I have a second chance of life. And a lot of people talk about that going through the transplantation journey, and you actually do feel that way. Probably jumping about a bit, but yeah, just the 5 years from 2013 to 2018, managing chronic kidney disease alongside type 1 diabetes was a challenge, and it got to a point where my focus was more on the chronic kidney disease because I knew how to do diabetes or type 1. It doesn't mean that I was the best, but I knew what I needed to do to just maintain it. But this was the big thing for me. Um, and then also I live with diabetic retinopathy as well. So I think kind of the key point for me in that journey was, I think it was Christmas 2017. I had my first floater. And so anybody who maybe listening who doesn't know what a floater is, it's where you have there's there's blood in the back of your eye, and the the best way to describe it is almost if you look to the right, your eyesight has moved, but then there's this little floating small speck that slowly floats across to the right hand side. Then you look to the left, and then it goes, and it's just it's annoying. It feels like you want to scratch your eye, but you can't. But when I first had that, I thought I was just going to go blind. That was my thought because all of the years living with um, type 1, whenever there was something wrong with your eyes, I just thought the next step is you go blind. That was it, and that's what I'd been I'd been led to believe. And so from there, I had laser treatment on the eye, and then kind of I've had multiple laser treatments on both eyes. In 2018, I had a vitrectomy surgery on my right eye because I'd had bleeds there, and the bleed wasn't clear, so I needed to have the surgery to remove the bleed. But since 2018, I've my vision is it's not 100%, but it's 95, 96. So I can still
Yeah,
see okay, but it's been a challenge. However, in the past year or so, I think I've only had one one bout of laser treatment, and that for me has been a win. I think when you live with complications, and I don't know whether you agree, but almost your marker for quote unquote success changes. So I
yeah,
now celebrate the small wins of, oh, I used to go to say take the retinopathy. I used to have an appointment. Oh, you need laser treatment in 2 weeks. Oh, you
yeah,
need laser treatment again. And now I've been, and it's like, oh, we're going to see you in 3 months. I'm like, wow, that's a win because now it's
yeah.
not 2 weeks. Now it's 3 months. So that means that okay, my eyes are steady. Okay, oh, that's good. Like, just celebrate that. And so that's what I've started to do now is celebrate the small wins, and it's I think that's something that people don't talk about when it comes to living with complications. Is that I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom, and yes, it is bad. It's well, not bad, but it is something. It's a lot to deal with. But also, if you just focus on, I find anyway, if you just focus on all of the negative of living with complications, then you miss out on the beauty of your life, and life still goes on as well. And there are things that you can still do and enjoy. You can enjoy spending time with friends. You can enjoy engaging with the community. And I think that's a key thing as well about the community is that when you live with complications, it's important to speak to others because they can tell you what actually happens. And I look back at particularly when I had the floaters, and I wondered if I'd spoken to somebody who'd had floaters, they probably would have reassured me that you're you you're probably not going to go blind tomorrow, but there's treatment out there that can help you. But I didn't, and I just didn't, and so yeah, it just went from that. But yeah, so that's kind of a condensed version of my complications.
It's excellent. That's tons of good info. And I think it was sort of was it 2017, 2018 when you had some eye complication issues.
Yeah,
Would it be fair to say maybe the community was still quite new in terms of an online community? It was happening. It had been happening for quite a few years at that stage, but it maybe wasn't so extensive as it is today. We've got lots of platforms and lots
yeah,
of communities, and maybe if you're new to talking about diabetes, it's not something you
yeah,
want to delve into. You can be scared of complications. A lot of people are. It's a tough
yeah,
subject.
yeah. I definitely agree with you. Agree with you there. And I think for me, it was difficult to talk about type one just in general, and around that time, actually, it wasn't probably until later 2018 when I first started my Instagram So I wasn't as open to talking. And even when you go into the online space, I think you need a level of confidence to share that vulnerability of I'm living with complications. This is what's going on. Um, so yeah, it was a challenge. But also I think the support would have been out there as well. So
Yeah,
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 I know the support would have been out there, but also I don't think I had the confidence to speak about it to get that support. A lot of it was,
yeah.
oh, if only I'd looked after myself, if only, and I was very hard on myself. Um, and that's one thing that I wouldn't want people to be is when you're diagnosed with complications is hard on yourself because
Yeah,
yes, easy, yeah, easier said than done, but you, almost you can't undo the past, and you have to come to terms with that, which again is easier said than done. Um,
absolutely.
but it helps you to move
Yeah,
forward.
it does. I mean, I think maybe there's still, even today, there's still a stigma associated
Mm,
with diabetes and complications, and I've certainly put the blame on myself for many years, many years, and only lately, in the last few years, did I come to terms with the fact that I live my life. I can't change. Just as you said, then you can't change the past. And even if I could change the past, I may still have had the complications that I have. today. So,
Right, right.
it's happened. You've got to deal with it, and it's difficult. But and talking about it, as you said, it can be amazing. It can set your mind at ease, especially when you get those classic letters off the eye clinic. We've noticed some changes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
am I going blind? What's going to happen?
yeah,
There's it can help people if they talk about that social media, X, Insta, Facebook, and all of those places.
yeah,
Get a lot of support there.
yeah. And even if you don't want to actively participate in the conversation, follow a hashtag hashtag diabetic retinopathy, and you'll probably be able to see people talking about the condition there, or reach out to um say like the GB dot pro. Like you can reach out to people where you don't have to share it from your say your own profile, but you could use um a middle profile if you want to say that this is what's going, and then so there's ways around it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, absolutely. You don't have to be a voice. You don't have to be vocal. You can take on a lot of support and information. Phil, get your mind at ease about all
Yeah,
kinds of subjects, complications, anything to do with diabetes.
yeah,
Yeah, so there's the hashtag GBDoc and yeah, diabetes chat in the last
yeah,
couple of years. Many, many, many out there
yeah,
that you could get support
yeah,
off on social media. So
definitely.
yeah, I think we could talk about complications for quite a long time, and it'd be a long podcast. So we'll leave complications there for the time being. Um, so I think when I first started talking to you, as I met you, you were working within diabetes. Um, I mean, we had a quick chat earlier, and we might have a little quick chat about it now and move on. Do you want to tell me a little
Yeah,
bit about that?
yeah.
What you did?
Yeah, so I used to work at JDRF. So this was I started working in 2013. So nothing glamorous. I worked in the HR team, but if you work in HR, then it's glamorous. But if you don't, then you're like, HR. But
Yeah,
I like working in HR. HR, we get a bad rep, but we're all good. But so yeah, started working in 2013, um, and kind of quite new to working quite soon after work. That's when I got my chronic kidney disease diagnosis. Um, and even though I was working there, I was still very much in a place of I don't really want to talk about my type 1 diabetes because I'd had in previous employment not the best experience when it comes to my type 1 diabetes. That scarred me quite a bit. And so, and even though I was working in HR, I still went through that experience. Um, I understand why sometimes people can be reluctant to talk about type 1 or their diabetes in the workplace. Obviously, working at JDRF is different. I had colleagues who were living with type 1. People would be uh, like testing their levels at their desks or doing an injection at their desk. So type 1 was very much it was normalized in the as you would expect, but it was normalized. Every even people who weren't living with the condition had an understanding about type 1, and so it
yeah,
was a really safe environment for me. um and working there was quite monumental in me shifting how I viewed and managed my type 1 diabetes, being able to access information about how to access technology, knowing who nice were and how nice operates and the nice guidelines. And I didn't have access to that information before, and it just opened up my mind to, oh, so this is what is available to me, this is what I can do. And so yeah, it was a good time working there because it it yeah, it was one of the key points in I don't want to sound dramatic, but it was one of the key points in my life in terms of changing the path that I was on when it came to my
it kind of
type 1
would it be
diabetes.
fair to say it sort of exposed you to more
Yeah,
information about aspects of it, and that helped you to move. forward with your
Oh
diabetes.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And maybe going off on a bit of a tangent here is that so I born in London, grew up in London, but the area of London that I grew up in and lived in was quite a deprived area, and so although I no longer live in that area because I grew up there, I've spent most of my formative years there. When it comes to health and just talking about health and everything, that wasn't really discussed in the area, and I think that that leads into the wider conversation about health inequalities, etc. But being at JDRF, it was a very different environment. Understanding actually, it was almost seeing the other side of, wow, this information is here. So I can do this. I can get that. I can challenge. I don't just have to take what's being said. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, it was a real eye opener for for me. But yeah, it was good. It was good working there.
yeah,
And yeah, it just got to a point where the advocacy stuff that I was doing was getting a bit bigger, and then I was working in type, and then type one just became my life. Um,
yeah,
and so then, yeah, it was just about kind of making the decision to find somewhere new to work. But yeah, it was good. It was
yeah. Cool.
very transformative.
I've always heard you talking positively about that particular job, and which is good, absolutely. And as you were just touching on there, it led to type one being a big part of your life, working life, and obviously you have to live with the condition. And again, just as we began speaking a few years ago, it was part of your social media, but more so your the Talking Type One podcast, where I thought, oh yeah, this guy's well engaged with diabetes and
Yeah,
the online community. So the Talking Type One podcast, it's still about today. When did that begin? And what clicked in your mind and you went, do you know what? I haven't spoken about that. And now I'm going to talk about it loads.
so um, probably started. So it started in April 2020. So it was like the perfect storm of lockdown, having an idea to do a podcast, and that was that perfect opportunity to do it because it was almost like a captive audience. But the idea was probably back in like late 2019. Um, I was a guest on another podcast, and I was like, oh, I quite like this. I also, where I've worked in HR, I've interviewed thousands of people. So I thought, well, I know how to interview people, um, and I can manage a conversation to try to get information out of it in a good way, and just and it felt like the and I mean this in the nicest way, but when I saw some conversations that were taking place at the time, um, it was typically people who have like really big accounts and and I thought, well, actually, there's beauty in people who don't have those big account or big names within the diabetes community, and let's talk about their journeys because their journeys are just as valid and important as then say some of the bigger names. And so then for me, it was just like, yeah, that's who I'm going to speak to, and I think everyone that I've spoken to on the podcast, I I knew before rather than just making a cold approach to just come on the so I knew so it was almost like just speaking with friends. I'm going to interview my friends, and
Yeah,
that's what it felt like. So yeah, that's where it came, and it was, and I wanted to talk about subjects that weren't always spoken about. So um, I've got an episode about diabetes and fertility. We talk about like eating disordered eating, bulimia, um, mental health, mental illness, living with OCD and type 1 diabetes. And so there's I just wanted something for everyone and for topics that weren't widely spoken about, but there's crossover with many of the different episodes as well, like talking about complications that, as we spoke and we touched on in your episode as well. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Oh, I mean, it's won awards, I think, hasn't it? So, and
Yeah,
deservedly
yeah,
so. And you're not
thank
talking about that, so I will. But yeah, if you've never seen Dan's podcast, you'll find it on all the good podcast sites. But I'll put
yeah,
something down below, and then
thank you.
make it easy for people to go and find that. So we're getting
Thank
short
you
on
very
time, but I'm
much.
going to touch on two more
Yeah,
things.
that's all right.
Um, Activity and exercise. You're doing
Yes.
something stupid, Dan. Let's be honest. Let's talk about that. What's going on?
You say stupid, I say a challenge. So in oh, just under 3 weeks now, I will be running London Marathon. So it's my first marathon. Never run marathon before, um, and yeah, it's the running journey really started as I was mentioning before, back around that pub garden time. I had wanted to. I'm part of the diabetes football community, and we had a session around that time. And in the warm up, I was just panting and I was struggling to breathe. And I had a word with myself. I was like, Daniel, this is not good. Like, you're just unfit. So you need to sort yourself out. So there was that part of it, but also at that point, I'd been living with my um, kidney transplant for maybe I think about 4 years or so, just over 4 years,
Yeah.
and it's about how best can I look after that. And I thought, well, I'd always wanted to do a 5K. Let me do a 5K. Started doing park runs. I walked my first one, then did walk and run, and then gradually managed to run around. Um, and then it really kicked off last year when I joined the running community and joining there. I've been running. I've done 3 10Ks and 2 half marathons, and then the marathon in a few weeks. But
Cool.
the reason, pardon?
You just said cool,
Oh.
but I'm inside. I'm thinking, oh my god.
But the reason why I wanted to just talk about it as well is I had a big fear of exercising or movement and how I manage my diabetes whilst doing that. My comfort zone was football, futsal, but running was something completely different. And it's taken a long time for me to build up the confidence of knowing how to manage my type 1 when running. Um, and again, my message is it's just really, if I can do it, or if anyone has any fear relating to movement and all the steps that you need to take and we need to do, is that the benefit of doing the movement outweighs any steps that you need to take, and you can overcome any fear that you have. Because I was super fearful.
That is a good message. It's an excellent message to give. Okay. Well, last one. Let's talk about you being an ambassador now. So all of your work in diabetes, talking type one podcasts, and all the other things you've been up to over the last few years. You found yourself a double ambassador. Is that fair to say? An ambassador for two
Yeah.
two organisations. So who are they? And is
Yes.
it just a question of taking in all the cash, or do you have to do stuff?
So I am an ambassador for Abbott, so the Freestyle Libre system, and also an ambassador for Insulet, so Omnipod. So it's not just all about taking in the cash. I have to
Yeah,
work
yeah,
full time,
yeah.
so it's not that glamorous. Um, but it is about sharing my experience of living with type one in different spaces, and also just promote my experience of type 1, how the freestyle libre um has helped me manage my or is helping me manage my type 1, how the omnipod is helping me manage my type, and the benefits of the the systems or the system, the insulin pump. Wouldn't I think you're quite similar to me. So I've seen some of you only work with companies that you believe in, or where
Yeah,
you would use the, and so that for me was really important. Is like I use both of these products, so I'm happy to align myself with them because I use, and what I'm saying is genuine rather than it being like a, oh, I don't use it, but you should use it. That just doesn't work for me.
yeah,
But yeah, it's been good. I had the opportunity to speak at the Houses of Parliament with Abbott, just about the glucose sensoring technology and how that's transformed my diabetes management. So it's been a good opportunity to raise awareness around type 1 diabetes or type 1 diabetes, but also diabetes technology in different spaces as well, and just to yeah, show people what's available and what's out there, and yeah,
yeah.
I enjoy it.
Good. I mean, I'm delighted for you. I mean, I've seen you speak at talking about diabetes.
Yeah,
The little it's not a convention, it's like a get together, isn't it? More than a
yeah, yeah,
convention. But
yeah.
I saw you speak there. It was, I think it was one of the best sort of speakers on the day on that day, and all the other good things you've been doing over the years. I think if
Thank you.
anybody is deserving of such a position, it has to be you. I mean, there's lots of good people out there doing loads of
Yeah,
good stuff,
yeah,
but I'm delighted that you
yeah.
get those
Thank you.
opportunities. And you always talk well, and you always come over well and supportive, and you're a lovely, warm guy. And I know lots of people think the same about you, having met you and engaged with you over the years. So
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm delighted about that. And we're getting to like the last minute, which is
I know.
perfect timing. So I'm gonna call an end to it there, if that's
Okay,
okay, Dan. So
that's fine.
thank you so much for your time today. I know you're busy. I know you've got tons of things to
No,
do.
don't worry.
No, you haven't. I've got nothing to do. It's Easter.
No, no, no. I said, don't worry.
I know. I know you've got things to do, but
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
so much for
No,
giving me your time today. And we'll get that online soon. So thanks for watching, guys. Plenty of buttons down below for you to click on, likes and subs, leave comments, and all of that good stuff. Do that down below. I'll leave some links to Dan's social media too, and you can go and check up on his stuff as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
yeah.
Bye for now.
Thank you for having me.